It is Throwback Thursday when we dive deep into our vast CBC archives. In 2016, BC schools required protections for gay, lesbian, and transgender students. And that was a long time coming. This story we're about to show you from 1997 offers a glimpse into the challenges gay high schoolers faced at that time.
Hand me a book.
It's a place to hang out, catch up with friends. But for a gay or lesbian student, a bustling high school hallway can be the loneliest place on earth.
I would walk down the halls. I'd get faggots screamed at me about every 5 seconds. Except in one hall, I got faggots screamed at me by about 20 people at a time for the entire walk.
These kids know all too well what it's like to be gay in a heterosexual world. It's a lesson they learned at school.
I know I'm going to get beaten up, but I don't know when.
Romi Chandra is 17. He came out of the closet a couple of years ago and has endured pretty much constant name-calling ever since. Even our camera in plain view didn't discourage one student from calling Romi a freak.
Now it's to the point where I hear it every day and I'm like, okay, yeah, tell me something that I don't already know. And sometimes I feel like having like a shirt that says fag written all across my shirt is saying, look, I know this, I know who I am. Don't need to tell me who I am.
Still, Romi admits the abuse hurts, and he says some teachers don't do enough to stop it.
I'd be walking, and there'd be a teacher behind me and then a student behind them. And then the student would be calling me faggot or something, and the teacher would ignore it.
They did not show any support. They did not say, hi, I can help you, I understand. The closest I ever got was one of my teachers in grade 8 gave me a pamphlet on suicide because he knew I was going to kill myself, and I was at that point because I was so depressed.
In fact, fully 1/3 of teens who commit suicide are gay or lesbian.
There's little in the way of education for educators and parents and other students and counselors dealing with these issues.
This Coquitlam teacher says it's time the school district changed that. He's asked the board to set up a committee that would try to make schools safer for gay, lesbian, and bisexual students.
They're not seeing themselves reflected in the curriculum. Historical and living figures who are gay or lesbian are seldom mentioned.
We certainly understand the issue of the harassment and discrimination that is occurring against gay students in the school system right now, and certainly everyone's very concerned about that.
But not all parents agree that Warren's proposal is the way to deal with it.
Some people feel this issue should not be discussed at all in any form in school, that it's something that should be left totally to the families.
The Coquitlam School District is about to approve an anti-harassment policy similar to ones already in place in districts such as Vancouver.
Just simply telling people that you need to respect other people doesn't make that happen.
But trustees say the policy will be strictly enforced to ensure all students, not just gays and lesbians, are protected.
Hopefully we could move in an inclusive way rather than segregating people even more.
Now, the folks here in the Coquitlam School District aren't the only ones grappling with this issue. BC's teachers will soon get a chance to decide how far they're willing to go to protect gay and lesbian students. When the BC Teachers Federation holds its annual general meeting next month, delegates will vote on a resolution to create a specific program designed to eliminate homophobia in schools.
I think what teachers will all agree, whether they agree with this specific resolution or not, will all agree with is they want their schools to be safe places for all kids.
Still, there is opposition.
There are some teachers that feel they don't have the ability to deal with this kind of issue in their classrooms, so they're a little bit worried about that.
The BCTF has training videos that deal with issues such as homophobia, and it supports the use of books like this one that focus on alternate families. But how much farther it will go in the future is in the hands of its members. Whatever happens, it will come too late for Romi Chandra. He'll graduate next year, and the effects of the homophobic abuse he's already endured will be hard to erase. But he hopes gay teenagers who follow in his footsteps will be able to do so without fear. For Broadcast One, I'm Karen Mason.
And joining us now is Romi Chandra Herbert. He started BC's first Gender and Sexuality Alliance Club and is one of the high schoolers, as we saw featured in that story, the main character. Romi, thanks for joining us. 26 years later, What's going through your mind watching and hearing that again?
So many emotions. It also feels like a bit of a reality show, TV, teen drama that was happening back then. But in all seriousness, the being called names just kind of brought back all those emotions, and not just, towards me, but towards even my friends, straight friends who were called names. And the feeling of, violence and targets of violence was real, but really, nothing really prepared me for later on when I started to lose my friends due to suicide. And, those became a bit more of a prevalent issue in my life.
You mentioned in that story that teachers don't do much to help students who are being bullied. We heard examples of LGBTQ plus students being called slurs with teachers right there. Now, you've done a lot of work in schools with students. How have things changed over the years, if at all?
It's incredibly drastically has changed. When I look back to those days and we were doing one workshop or one training in a classroom to doing hundreds of workshops and training across the province. During that time, I had started the only one gay straight alliance in my school. And now today there are rainbow clubs across the province in every school district. And those are some of the incredible changes that I'm seeing happening right now.
Is there anything that hasn't changed when you look back on that story?
The feeling of isolation has remained the same for many young people, feeling that the hatred that still exists out there. We're still, while SOGI, sexual orientation and gender identity issues are being addressed, there's still communities who are afraid of talking about these issues, using the same kind of fear analogies that happened 26 years ago. But we're still electing politicians municipally, federally, and provincially who hold these views. And so we got to be constantly aware of, all of these rights being taken away.
Romi, we appreciate your time, and this was difficult material to share again, and we thank you for doing that. Lastly, what would you tell perhaps yourself or another student back then about how things may have changed and have changed?
Well, it's, I now have a 6-year-old son, and just going into his classroom in the library and seeing the positive images all over of trans flags, of rainbow flags, then seeing that to the only image that I had growing up was in my own locker of all those positive images. The changes are so incredible and so powerful. And young kids in his classroom, have come up to me and said, "Oh, I hear Dev has 2 dads." And in my mind, I'm like ready to prepare myself for a mini presentation to the kid. But I said, yes, he does have 2 dads. And the kid's like, "Oh, cool," and runs off into the playground. And the kid looks at me, smiles, and runs after him. And, and that's it. That's what it is. And that's what's been really wonderful to see, that kind of change.
Romi Chandra Herbert, we appreciate your time, your perspective, and your experience. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.